Hey everybody, and welcome to Dominion Cards, the video series where we take a strategic, in-depth look at various cards on the board game Dominion. Today we're looking at Loan. This is a 3-cost treasure from Prosperity. It gives +1 coin, and it says reveal cards from your deck until you reveal a treasure. Discard it or trash it. Discard the other cards. So what Loan does is it's going to dig through your deck until it finds a treasure, which it will then trash or discard. So the digging's very similar to, say, Venture, which is also digging through your deck to find a treasure. Now, the vast majority of the time, the only treasure that you're looking to trash in this way is going to be copper. So we can think of Loan mostly as a copper trasher, sort of like how Moneylender is exclusively, in the realm of trashing coppers only. So if someone tried to sell you on Loan, what might they say? What are the good bits of Loan? So first of all, Loan is cheap. It only costs 3, and that's pretty nice. Normally you want to buy your trashers as early as you can, and by costing 3, this means you still have the important 4 cost available to you, and there's a couple of really nice cards that cost 4 that you want to open with normally, so it's nice to not have to spend that on your trasher. It's non-terminal, means if you draw it alongside like a terminal action card that maybe you bought with your 4, then there's no collision risk in that case, right? You don't have to make a choice over which one to play. You can play them both. It gives you a coin when you play it, and it doesn't trash from your hand. So what that means is that you're still sort of playing with 5 cards in your hand when it comes to generating money for what to buy on that turn. Compare with something like Trade Route, or even better, something like Steward, which is trashing from your hand and also not giving you a coin. And as I'm sure you know, you end up just a lot of the time not buying anything that turn because you've barely got any cards left to play with and you're not really generating any money. It can also skip past your estates as well. So particularly on turn 3 or 4, if you had any estates on the top of your deck, Loan will shoot past them. And that's good. That means you don't draw them during your first shuffle, and that's really nice for hitting those key price points early if it happens. Now, admittedly, can also flip over your other opening buy as well. Say it was something like Militia that you bought, it could skip that too. So there's not a complete lack of collision risk. It sort of works out in a different way, but it's way less likely, right? And sometimes that just happens. Well, never mind. But skipping the estates is nice, at least. Now, I started with the benefits because, in reality, Loan actually has quite a lot of problems, and that's going to make up the rest of the video. Loan has a lot more problems than it has benefits. So the biggest thing with Loan, effectively, is that it's not necessarily going to be very good at trashing coppers a lot of the time, and it can struggle. And that's a bit of a problem because pretty much the only reason why we would ever buy Loan is because we want to get rid of our coppers. So not very good if it's going to struggle to do that a lot of the time. So the reason why this happens is because Loan targets all treasures, not just coppers. So when it's digging through, the first treasure it comes across is not a copper. Not only does that mean that you probably won't be trashing anything with Loan this turn because you're going to discard that gold or silver that it flipped, but also you don't even get to play that gold or silver or so on this shuffle because you've got to discard that too. So not only do you effectively knock out the point of the Loan, but also you knock out your other early purchase as well, and whoops, that's a big deal. So Loan can sort of catastrophically whiff sometimes, and that's a problem. So what this sort of means is that basically any time you add any other treasure to your deck other than Loan, you are putting a big risk that you just aren't going to be able to trash effectively with Loan, right? Your Loan's going to start missing as soon as some other type of treasure's in your deck. And that's not good to start wasting those trashes. It only trashes 1 card at a time. You really don't want to be whiffing with Loan. And the thing is that adding another treasure early isn't that uncommon. You do it a fair amount, really. Silver, you don't really want to open with it, but sometimes you've got to hit 5, and so you do a lot, right? It's always there, at least. And yeah, it's if you're just opening with silver, do you really want to open Loan as well? Because they're just going to get in the way of each other. And another problem is that loan is going to be targeting your coppers, and while coppers are a card we want to get rid of, the reality is that we do actually rely in the early game on our coppers to actually give us money. And because loan isn't trashing your estates, what that means is that you're going to soon start drawing your estates over and over as your copper density is going down. And that means that actually you're going to start running out of money and not be able to generate much. And so normally to combat that at some point, maybe you're going to start adding like silvers to your deck so that you can still generate money and buy the cards you want. And as a result, you start screwing over loan. As your copper density goes down, it becomes more and more likely to find like the silvers that you start adding to your deck, and it just sort of stops working. So with loan, what you're really looking for is other ways to generate money, such as action cards. So I mentioned before, like militia costing 4. That's fine. We can open that with loan because that's giving us money when we play it, right? So we get a bit of money. It's like a silver, isn't it, militia? So you wanna try and basically not buy treasures, at least for a while, with loan. That's what you're looking to do. Now, of course, loan is also a treasure. Maybe you decide, I don't really want to only trash 1 copper per turn. I've got to get thin fast. So for the time being, I'll think about adding a second loan early. Well, the problem is that because loan is a treasure, that means that loan is going to start finding loan. And the problem is that if you buy a second loan and you find it with 1, well, now you don't get to use either loan this shuffle, and you're just going to be trashing 0 cards because you've got to discard the other loan that you found. Now, when loan misses, it's kind of like a copper, right? It's 1 treasure stop card, and it gives you 1 coin. And if loan's going to start missing a lot, then that means that you bought a copper. But of course, the reason why you bought loan was because you want to get rid of the copper from your deck. So why are you buying copper-like cards if you actually want to be getting rid of the copper cards in your deck, right? Like, in order for loan to be worth it, it's actually got to substantially trash a certain number of cards. So like, if you only ever trashed 1 copper with a loan, all you've done is replace that copper with a loan, right? Which is kind of a waste of a buy. It needs to trash at least 2 coppers to start getting anything. And, well, if you add like a second loan, well, it just becomes less and less likely that that second loan is actually going to get as far as having trashed 2 cards itself, right? So very rarely will you ever add like a second loan to your deck. Now, loan trashes from your deck rather than your hand, sort of like Sentry and Lookout. Those are other cards we've seen that trash from your deck. This means you can't trash a copper that you've drawn unless you have a way of getting it out of your hand, either by discarding it with something like Poacher or top-decking it with something like Artisan. When I say top-decking, of course, I don't mean something like Royal Seal. I mean top-decking essentially before you play your treasures, like right at the end of your action phase. Now, these are problems that Sentry and Lookout also have. However, loan is even worse at this. It's got a problem doing this, and that is because it is a treasure. So once we start getting our deck under control and we start getting towards drawing our whole deck, what you find is that you can't leave like action card trashers like Sentry or Lookout till the end of the turn because you've drawn all of your deck. But what you can do is you can play them in the middle of your action phase while you're currently still in the middle of drawing your deck. And there is a chance that they might find any straggler coppers that are still left. Obviously, it's a lot safer to do this with Sentry than Lookout, but the point stands. I can play them before I've actually finished drawing my deck. But loan, as a treasure, most of the time, I have to wait until the buy phase. And ideally, in the action phase, I finish drawing all of my cards. So that means by the time it gets around to finally being able to play loan, there is nothing left in my draw or discard pile, so it cannot actually find any cards in order to trash. And then loan, it's now just a copper, right? Like, it switches off. You're not getting any more trashing done at that point. So if you don't have any top decking or discarding that you could do right at the end of your action phase, like the last action you play is an Artisan that gets a card and then like top decks a copper, loan, it doesn't work anymore once you start drawing your deck. And as a result, depending on how quickly that gets set up, you might find you don't actually end up trashing that many cards with loan. Maybe you only trash like 3 or 4 coppers. Well, still better than trashing none, but it's not as good as trashing them all, and you have got that loan replacing one of those coppers that you trashed. Now, sometimes draw is weak, but you still want to try and get your deck as thin as possible. So maybe something like, laboratory is your only draw, and you're only allowed to get so many of them because your opponent's also contesting them. And as such, you can't really draw that much through your deck. Well, loan's pretty good in those cases because it can still keep working. Like if you know that you're never really going to be drawing your entire deck, then that's fine. You will have turns where you didn't draw all of your coppers, but you did draw your loan, and you'll get a chance to trash one of them. I talk a lot about the best deck archetype is where you draw your whole deck every turn, but we've got to remember it doesn't actually happen all of the time, right? You sort of aim to it, but it doesn't mean you're actually going to achieve it. So loan is overall, it's a very weak trash card. It tends to lose out to other trash cards that are better. Most notably, trash cards can trash estates, and loan can't, right? Estates are usually much better to get rid of first. So if you've got something that can trash estates and coppers well, like Sentry or possibly even something like Trade Route, you may find loan's going to lose out to that. Loan wants to be bought early because it's a trasher that might eventually turn off when your deck starts getting good enough. But the problem is that early on, sometimes, depending on the kingdom, there might be some really important cards at a high price point that you want to get as soon as you can. Now, loan is giving you a coin and not trashing from your hand, but the reality is that the one coin that it gives you isn't necessarily going to be good enough. You really need a silver or equivalent to make your odds of hitting 5 basically good enough. You might draw a turn of 4 coppers and a loan, but odds are pretty high early on that you won't. Anytime you draw a loan, it's not going to be enough on its own to actually help you hit 5. And if the only way that you're going to be able to build your economy early is cheap treasures like silver, it's just going to get in the way of loan. So, yeah, a lot of reasons overall why loan is just a pretty poor trasher. Now, something else that's worth noting about loan is that it can give you quite a lot of cycling through your deck because of how it runs through your deck to hunt for another treasure. It could be good or bad, depending. So if you still have treasures left to draw, it is entirely possible that you can cause an unwanted shuffle by doing this. Especially, your deck's not under control yet. It's still taking multiple turns to get through your shuffle, so you already have a discard pile, more cards. And then what happens is that there are no cards left in your deck, but there are some in your discard pile. Well, you're going to cause a shuffle by doing the hunt for the treasure. And sometimes that might be really bad. It might mean that all the good cards you played this turn, or any good cards that it skipped over, all get thrown into the shuffle. They get thrown to the discard after the shuffle, and therefore, you don't get to play them. It's sort of like the problem in the first video about Cellar, where you can inadvertently cause shuffles where you've got a load of really bad, weak cards, and then your next hand is going to be terrible. Of course, if you don't have any more treasures that you haven't drawn yet at all, then loan will actually cycle you all the way through the rest of your shuffle and basically give you a clean draw next time. And generally, cycling is quite nice because, when you buy a card, it goes to your discard, and that means if you want to play it, you need to shuffle first. And so if you get right the way to the end of your shuffle every turn, you're getting all those new cards that you're buying that are hopefully what you want and pretty good. You're going to get to play them a little bit earlier. So there are other cards where it's better to maybe discuss in depth about cycling, whether it's good or bad. So I'm just going to leave this here. But, just keep it in mind, it's not an important part of loan, but actually it can do a lot of cycling for you. And maybe that's something that you want to consider. But I would say in general, I don't really buy loan just because I'm thinking, I want to get a clean shuffle every turn. Loan is not good enough. I buy it pretty much because I want to do trashing. So in summary, loan is in the bottom 15% of Kingdom cards. It's pretty bad. It's a very weak area to be in. In decks that can effectively draw everything, you're really looking for cards that discard or cards that top deck if you actually want to trash all of your coppers. Maybe you don't need to trash them all, but if you do want to get really thin, that's something that you're looking for in the rest of the kingdom. If your deck isn't going to be able to draw itself fairly reliably at some point, then those are the sorts of decks where actually you might want to go more in on treasures, and as a result, loan's going to be pretty bad in decks like those, because you're just going to start throwing like silvers and golds in, and loan's just basically like you bought a copper in your early turns, and that's not very good. Most other trash cards are just better than loan, and you tend not to buy it often. If you find yourself skipping loan a lot on boards, that's okay. It's not actually a very good card, unfortunately. So what we're going to do now is head over to the online client and generate some kingdoms with loan forced in, and we'll assess how good it is. Now, this is the brand new styling of the online client, and it's updated, so hopefully this isn't going to be a problem. And this should all go okay. So here is, where's the button? Here it is. Here's our first kingdom, and we don't get the these cards on the side anymore, the base cards, but there's no colony platinum. I'll just have to remember that, it seems. So what have we got here? Well, obviously there's loan for trashing, but there's also apprentice as well. That's pretty good. Apprentice can get rid of our estates. And I do notice that there's pirate ship, so we do actually have reason to want to not be using treasures, especially because there's also conspirator and throne room. So, we've got an engine that wants to be thin. Now, I do notice that there is mountebank, which is unfortunate. Or the only village is throne room, and the only cards with plus action on them are apprentice, apothecary, and a sort of conspirator, I guess. The only draw is apprentice, and apothecary as well. The thing I'm wondering is, are you at risk of being pirate shipped if you do an apothecary deck? I'm not sure that you are. Mountebank seems more important than pirate ship, especially because the trashing's not super great at getting rid of coppers. Now, to be fair, mountebank dishes out coppers, so loan actually might be decent here. Ideally what I want is a deck with throne room and conspirator, and I get to play mountebanks. There is Sea Hag, but it seems pointless when there's mountebank available. There is explorer, but I don't know. Conspirator is pretty good. There is no plus buy at all, so I do want to get thin. I do want apprentice, but at the same time I think I do want loan. I don't know about apothecary. I mean, honestly, an apothecary seems quite nice, but at the same time, do I just open conspirator loan? Is that going to be better? Is apothecary a waste of time and getting a potion? I don't like it. Swindler. Maybe swindler's better. Maybe it's swindler loan. I think I do get a loan. I hope that the swindler will get me up to apprentice, and then I think I'm all right. I'd probably get an apprentice before I get a mountebank, I think. Or should I ignore all of this and just do some sort of mountebank money strategy? What's apothecary plus mountebank? Is that actually any good? Maybe that's better than loan. Maybe we just embrace the fact that we're going to be junked to death, and we just try and use apothecary to cycle through all of the crap that we're getting, and pick up the mountebanks, or at least cycle to them faster. And we just accept, hey, we're going to be getting a load of coppers and curses, but that's fine because apothecary is going to be drawing those coppers. And I wouldn't really be worried about a pirate ship, although there is throne room pirate ship. If your opponent gets really thin, can they cause havoc with pirate ship? I don't think so, because you with the apothecary and mountebank, you can just start shifting into conspirator, and I guess you're safe. There will probably be curses flying around. I do need apprentice to get rid of them. I'm not sure about this board, to be honest. This is actually pretty tough. Do I actually want loan or not? I think I prefer the apothecary mountebank, just a slog, just forego deck control. I think it takes too long to get our deck thin, and we would rather just try and play mountebanks as quickly as possible in order to make sure our opponent just can't get thin at all, ever. And as a result, I think going potion and swindler is probably fine over silver. I guess it doesn't really matter. I think I'll just get the early swindler because I can. Maybe I get to turn some coppers into curses early, which is nice. Yeah, so I think I skip loan and I just don't do the engine here, but I may be wrong on that. I'll be willing to accept that actually like Lone Swindler is better and you're trying to get thin and do the throne room, mountebank, conspirator stuff. I don't know. But yeah, it depends on the strategy. Like Lone, you sort of doing it out of desperation there if you actually want that. I think like it could go either way on Lone. What about this kingdom? Again, no colony platinum. So we have for trashing expand and remodel and a bishop and loan. Well, what can we remodel estates into or expand? Expand goes into witches, remodel puts them into like merchants. I guess that's okay. Copper trashing is pretty harsh here outside of bishop or loan, so I think loan is going to be decent. What's our deck ultimately look like? Well, Fishing Village is a great village. Our only draw is witch, but to be fair, there is also King's Court. So King's Court merchant is also technically draw as well. Bureaucrat we don't really care about. Ooh, how do we get rid of curses? This is the big deal. We could expand them into fishing villages or merchants. That's really nice. We could otherwise bishop them, which eventually we might want to do. There is like King's Court bishop here, which is actually pretty decent. There is no plus buy, I notice, but there is artisan to gain the cards, which is okay. I really would like to hit artisan as soon as possible here. How do I do that? So there's basically 0 cards costing up to 4 that are actually decent for like, except like Silver or Fishing Village as an opener here. Maybe I do Fishing Village remodel. I just do it anyway, and I just say, okay, maybe I'm just going to wait a little bit until I hit artisan. Do I do that? Is it too important to get artisan? The cursing is actually quite important here because they're quite nasty, the curses. The draw is not great, and there's a load of really expensive cards that I actually want. On the other hand, it would be nice to use loan to start trashing. Is Fishing Village going to carry us far enough? I don't know about that. It would be nice to start remodeling estates into 1 silver and a bunch of merchants, though. That would be nice. But ultimately, I would rather have an expand. Well, you can start with remodel. Or do you just wait until you have expand? Well, actually, I don't think expand is important because we have artisan to gain 5 costs. I'm not going to be expanding estates into witches. I could just pick them up with artisan. Artisan's going to... What is it even going to gain eventually? Like... The problem is there's not much of an engine here. Like, we get a bunch of witches, fishing villages, merchants. That's kind of it for engine components. It's not actually a very good engine. Well, and King's Court, I suppose. And how far do you even go? Like, you can't gain that much stuff to bishop, can you? Not really. Like, do you... The engine's not good, but like the big money alternative to the engine is absolutely terrible as well. So we sort of do the engine, it's just a pretty weak one. And for that reason, I think I'm okay spending a while trashing first. Maybe hitting, well, you know what? Getting a bunch of witches early would actually be really, really nice here. They really are quite bad at the curses. You've pretty much only got, you got bishop as well. Okay, that's fine. To get rid of curses, which we do later. Maybe we never get an expand, although it would be nice to turn like curses into merchants or something. Maybe all the merchants just go, or fishing villages. Too soon, I don't know. Well, I'm definitely opening fishing village. To be honest, I'm probably going to open remodel as well. Or is it loan remodel? Fishing Village is just a lot better for like hitting a nice high price point, and I really want the artisan. Okay, maybe it's Fishing Village silver. You know what? I'm going to go all in. I want to hit artisan as soon as I can. And I'm just not going to trash initially, and then I'm going to start trashing. Like, if I can get artisan quickly enough to get going, I can then start picking up trash stuff like loan. I think that's okay. Like, the deck's going to take a while anyway. I really hope my opponent opens bishop and I get to just trash for free. That would be fantastic. What's way better than trashing with loan? It is, of course, trashing with your opponent's bishops, because I don't have to buy loan. But if they're sensible, that won't happen. I think I skip loan here. Well, yeah, because eventually I'll be like King's Courting bishops, hopefully, and then I can like get rid of all of my coppers, and that'll be a lot better. So Maybe I just skip loan here. I just don't think it's a good enough trasher, and there's just too much priority on hitting a nice high price point. I think I just got to focus on getting to like 6 as soon as I can there. So I think that's a skip. But it's tough. Keep forgetting this button's on the bottom of the screen now. Whoops, is there? There is no colony platinum on this kingdom. So we have loan as effect. Oh no, there's steward as well. Okay, so steward's a way better trasher. So highly doubt we're going to be using loan here. We do have bandit for gaining treasures. Mine, which seems very poor. There is witch as well. Now there's no village. But I think... Wait, do I do the steward thing? You know, a nice deck would be steward, a bunch of merchants, but maybe I pick up with workshop and like a silver. But actually, there's no village, like there's no plus buy. I only get to play one terminal per turn. The only non-terminals are haven, merchant, and like loan. This is actually a very poor engine deck, which makes me wonder if witch is really what we want here. This is basically just play witch as much as you can. I'm not even sure loan is very good, but maybe I open with it. But to be honest with you, like you see, the problem is we just want to be playing witch over and over. For that reason, we sort of can't play steward because we want to be spending our terminal action on witch. We do need to get up to witch initially, so I would really like to open... I really don't want a Sea Hag. I'd rather have witches. But Sea Hag opener's pretty nasty here as well. Like, a part of me is just saying I open double silver. But actually, maybe loan is okay. If I don't have time to be playing stewards, maybe I just do that. Alternatively, what I could do is I could go steward, silver, and maybe forego the first trash on steward if I happen to get to witch. Maybe I'm focusing too much on witch. Like, it would be really nice to get rid of the estates. I would like to play steward. I could potentially... Oh no, I don't really want to go lone silver. That's terrible. What am I talking about? Could be like lone steward, but I think that's too much trashing. We would get thin, but I worry that by the time it happened, an opponent who just went money, big money witch, is drowning me in curses, and I basically have like no economy in my deck, and I would have to start adding treasures, and then like the loan is bad. Like, maybe it's just big money witch. Maybe that's just the best thing that I can do here, to be honest. Yeah, I think it is. I think big money witch, like the engine's just too slow, and it's just too difficult to like clean up after the witch. Because there's only one terminal per turn, so I just don't get rid of my coppers at all because it's like a big money board. I think that's what I do, but man, a lot of tough kingdoms coming up actually on this one. I might be wrong on all of these. If you have better ideas, let me know. But I think I skip loan on that kingdom. It's just bad, right? I skip trashing entirely. So this one does have platinum colony. I need to remember that. All right, what have we got? So trashing options are loan, apprentice again, and also trade route. Maybe trade route would be better than loan for estates, but you know, it would be nice. Apprentice. We've got alchemist as the only draw. There is market. There is pearl diver. There is poacher. So we've got a bunch of like cantrips. There's artisan for gaining like markets and apprentices. That's quite nice, actually. I realise that there is no village at all. Our primary trasher is apprentice. That's pretty good. I would really like an apprentice. A loan is nice to start with, and you can just apprentice it later. That is fine. However, I do really want artisan here. But you know what? There's also alchemist as our only draw. And to be honest, I want some alchemist as well. It is the only draw. So, like, there's no... I'm just checking. There's no, like, decent big money alternative here. Doesn't seem like it. Is embargo a worry? Not really. What I really want to be doing is playing an artisan every turn. That sounds really nice. Drawing a lot, playing artisan. I can get, like, a bunch of markets. I can get some alchemists. Is it worth opening potion, or does that get in the way of artisan too much? Do I care about alchemist straight away? Not really. Poacher is okay at first as well. Perhaps, you open Poacher over Potion. We just wait a bit on the Alchemist, because I really don't like trying to buy Alchemist turn 3 or 4. It whiffs a lot because of the Potion and the 3 cost on Alchemist. I do like Poacher. The question is, so if it's a 5-2, I'm doing Apprentice and Embargo, and then I'm probably just going to embargo the Apprentice and hope I get to do that before my opponent can buy it, and then just hope I'll be able to Artisan any remaining Apprentices. That sounds really good on a 5-2. On a 4-3, I think I open Poacher over Potion, and the question then is, do I actually want a loan? Loan is actually okay here for getting rid of coppers. Like, the draw is not great on this board. Eventually we will become some sort of like cantripy thing, but there is Apprentice to make up for it, so loan is fine. Based on that, it actually might be okay to go for loan over silver here, and we might actually be good enough with a Poacher or 2 to forego ever needing a silver. We've got an action form of money, and we can get up to 5 and hit an Apprentice, and that should help us like get up to 6 for Artisan, and it won't be straight away, but the loan will actually help out quite a lot, I think. I don't know how good that is, but that's probably what I'm going with. The alternative is we open like loan and embargo, which is better as a Poacher, because it gives us 2 money, and it does that once, and we hope that that spikes us up to Apprentice. Maybe that's nicer. I'm not sure what I would embargo in that case. Yeah, I suppose what you can do is you can do that and you can just embargo Alchemists, right? I say I want Alchemists, but of course embargo's good against Potion cards, so I can just be like, you know what, we're not playing with Alchemist this game. And if my opponent, especially if I see my opponent open Potion, I'm just opening Loan Embargo. Right, I'm going to pick up Loan, I'm going to wait to see for the other one, like, do they get a Potion? And if they do, I'm going to get Embargo, I'm just going to slap it on Alchemist. I'm just going to be like, haha, forget you, mate. And we just do market only, rather than any draw. And that's a bit more difficult, but I think long-term that probably works out. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. So I think I do go for loan here. We have ways of avoiding silver early on, and although getting to high cost, it seems really, really good, I think it can wait a little bit, because the kingdom's not very good otherwise, and there's like no real good big money stuff going on, so we don't have to worry about getting beaten to the punch like that. So yeah, I think that's a loan board. It's fine in that kingdom. So come on, give me an easy kingdom for once. This will be the last one. What have we got here? Oh, that last kingdom was Colony Platinum. I almost forgot, wasn't it? Oh, we'll definitely get to build the engine then, for sure. We eventually get Platinums, I guess. Okay, let's move on to this one. This is not Colony Platinum. We have Possession, oh no, and Familiar. Ugh. But there is Sentry for trashing. That's really, really good. I do want sentries as soon as I can. There is Salvager for trashing as well. We've got plus buy with Salvager and Council Room. So there's all these ways to draw with Laboratory, Council Room, Courtyard, Diplomat. The only village is Diplomat, and we have no way of kicking it off, unfortunately. We can't get our hand size down at the start of the turn without playing a terminal action. So unfortunately, we've got no village in this kingdom at all. And is that a problem? Well, that probably means this isn't very good for possession. What do I want to do here? I think it has to be familiar into, like, Sentry. And then what? Or is it literally just Courtyard big money and we just shove past any attempts to do anything else? Like, Courtyard's nice, but there is familiar. Like, the counter to Courtyard big money is that you get a familiar and you just throw a bunch of curses in their deck and then actually it's not so good anymore. Especially with Sentry, if someone can get familiars, well, going for familiar gets in the way of getting Sentry, of course, is the problem. But if I can get thin and then like play a load of familiars, which is possible when you get thin, that's really bad for any other strategy. I sort of don't like loan here because the Sentry. Sentry is good, and we're definitely going to need treasures. There's like no other way to reasonably get money, so loan seems bad. So I open Salvager Silver, maybe? The Salvager is nice to trash the estates early, and I really just want to get to Sentry. I'm going to use Sentry to trash coppers. And what I'm going to do is once I've got my sentry, I'm going to get a potion, and then I'm just going to throw a load of familiars at my opponent. I think curses from familiar. And we just start cycling until the curses are all gone. And then what? Right? It's golds, it's silvers, and we maybe get some labs, and then I just buy like one province a turn because it's not worth building any higher because it's too slow, because I've got to do it by like buying golds, I guess. And the salvager can start like smashing up my familiars when they're done, and the sentries, and maybe later on laboratories or golds, and that'll give me a bit more money. I think that's probably good enough. I think that's better than like courtyard big money. Either way, I'm not buying loan. This is just too treasure heavy, is the upshot of this. So loan is skipped. Anyway, there you go. Very, very difficult kingdoms, actually. And I wonder how much is that because loan was eating up an actually useful kingdom card slot. And as a result, the kingdoms were all very tough and weak. Loan is, I guess it's a little bit interesting in that it's not doing that much for you, but when you really want it, like, you've sort of got to really change how you build the kingdom to make use of it. Like, I don't know, man. It's not good, but it's okay. Anyway, I hope that was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.